that the Prime Minister casually said in the Oval Office today. He bragged that $500 billion Canadian investment dollars have left for the States in the last 5 years, and then promised that $1 trillion more will leave in the next 5 years.
Well, here we are. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Mark Carney, had his meeting with Donald Trump, and what happened? I'm actually shocked. I'm shocked. Carney did not get a deal. He got nothing. He got nothing for Canada. This guy is useless. What did I say yesterday? So unless Carney craps the bed, there's going to be a deal. Looks like Carney's not sleeping in his bed tonight. And now we're seeing all this stuff coming out. $500 million fleeing to America from Canada. Pierre Poilievre blasting him on this. We've got reports of a massive $100 billion deficit. Are these guys intentionally taking our country? It sure looks like it. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, yesterday being October 7th, we've got this one from Mario saying that Toronto school plays O Canada in Arabic on October 7th anniversary. This is deplorable, man. As Mario points out, they have over 100 Jewish students. Official languages are English and French. We've got this one. RCMP said it is aware of an Antifa-affiliated website instructing adherents to commit crimes by sabotaging domestic rail infrastructure in British Columbia. Maybe it's time to designate this group as a terror lord group. And we've got this one here. High school students in Mississauga walked out today in support of October 7th. This is deplorable. The indoctrination that is going on with younglings in our country is... Young minds can be molded so easily at this age. They have no idea what is going on. And obviously in the comments here, people attacking one way or the other. The major point here is these kids should not be involved in protest, period. Protesters shouldn't be allowed to try to recruit anyone under the age of 18 into a protest. Period. So moving over to Mark Carney's colossal failure, check out this clip here of when he met Donald Trump for the second time, and he wore red for him.
It's amazing. I would just say, more red for you.
I wore red for you, big guy. I wore red for you. That didn't seem to matter, though, because we've got this coming out here. Canada's private sector doubles down on U.S. investment. Mark Carney says Canadian investment in the U.S. could hit $1 trillion, with some politicians questioning if more money will flow stateside. Pierre Poilievre yesterday in the House of Commons blasting the Liberals on this. Before we see Pierre's response, let's cue up the moment here. Admittedly, while I was watching this live, I was already a couple hours into watching this live stream. This one just slipped right past me. I heard him say it, I just didn't clue in. This is a massive admission that Liberals have been pushing our money out of Canada into America.
We are the second largest trading partner of the United States. We do a lot of trade going across the border where we're cooperating, first thing. Secondly, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get.
If we get the agreement we expect to get, what is this guy talking about? He's bragging about Canadians moving money out of Canada into America. This is disgusting. This is deplorable. This is un-Canadian. And a Canadian Prime Minister saying this? Of course he is. He's 91% invested in America. This guy isn't a Canadian.
The Prime Minister promised Canadians to, and I quote, negotiate a victory. He promised have a deal by July 21st, 2025. Still no deal. Still no victory, and American tariffs have actually doubled. But today, the Prime Minister made his biggest concession of all. He promised to push $1 trillion of investment out of Canada into the United States of America, which will drive down Canadian wages and Canadian jobs. Why is it when the Prime Minister goes for lunch at the White House, it's Canadian workers on the menu?
That's right.
The Prime Minister and his colleagues are at the White House today, advancing Canada's interests, advancing Canada's trade interests, advancing our interests in foreign policy generally. And I know that the hopes of all Canadians accompany our Prime Minister to those meetings where he will very, very clearly defend the rights of Canadian workers and of the Canadian economy. I sure hope the Leader of the Opposition is among those Canadians.
There's a reason they kept this guy around. Stephen McKinnon, he is the biggest blabbermouth around. He can just barf out any combination of words, sounds passionate, nothing's coming out. Carney didn't do anything. It's really quite something with everything going on. The leaked report that came out that a steel deal was going to be done. You have this precision missile strike system here, $2 billion deal. Nothing happened with that. And it is quite possible that they're still negotiating this and this will take some time. But you can bet that this one is going to get done because obviously Carney invested in it. That's going to get done. Nothing went through for Algoma Steel in the steel industry. There was rumors of the lumber industry. Nothing went through there. Does this all hinge on the fact that during the meeting, Donald Trump brought up the dairy cartel, supply management? Mark Carney, if you saw my video, his face was like, oh, what are you talking about, Donald? We can't have any talk about that. I brought in legislation that prevents us from negotiating that. Because what? Mark Carney's got friends in the dairy cartel, so don't want to rock their profits. Who cares about Canadians? And that's what we're seeing. No deal. No deal again. But don't worry. It's okay because Mark Carney, he's 91.62% invested in the United States. So he's okay. His investments are secure. Don't worry. We won't have any sleepless nights on this. Now we're hearing $500 billion up to $1 trillion of our money going down to America. Who does that benefit? And I know the liberals are watching. Liberal supporters, who does that benefit? How can you in good conscience keep voting for this guy? You're getting duped. And on top of this, I've been digging into Tim Hodgson because there's no way that he has no investments considering he's a banker buddy of Mark Carney. Go back to his history here. You can see former managing director Goldman Sachs and all these different boards he sat on, Hydro One. He didn't give up this cushy job at Hydro One to not have his pockets stuffed as well. This guy's invested in some other stuff too, Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, I believe, as well. One thing I was digging into specifically is what are his investments? So this page here is the equivalent of Mark Carney's. This one here, Mark Carney's that has like a zillion assets, all of these. So this document here, like 10, 12 pages long, are Mark Carney's conflicts of interest disclosure. This one, this is the same page for Tim Hodgson. So what does this say? Divestment by selling the control assets in an arm's length transaction. Pursuant to Section 27 of the Act, RRSP composed of at least one controlled asset. That is all it says. What is this? Basically, this is telling us that Tim Hodgson has at least one asset in his RRSP. We don't get to know what it is, and it's not just one. It could be 100. It could be 500 like Mark Carney, and we don't know what this guy's invested in. What a joke. Our country's a joke.
Prime Minister casually said, and I quote, $500 billion in the last 5 years alone of Canadian investment has left to the U.S. And he said probably $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. Wow. In other words, he made a massive $1 trillion concession before the deal was even signed and without getting anything in return. $1 trillion of exit investment means closing mines and factories in Canada and opening them in the U.S. Why did the Prime Minister sell out our workers on his visit to Washington?
We do not need Donald Trump's permission to open mines and roads and infrastructure in Canada. That's exactly what we're going to be doing, is building Canada with Canadian labor, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and Canadian lumber. If he's referring to the Maple 8, the pension funds that Canadians are so proud of and invest in, who invest all over the world and take their profits back to Canada to pay Canadian pensions, well, I say bring that on too, Mr. Speaker.
This guy talks about all these Canadian products, yet they just send $1 billion contract to China using Chinese workers, Chinese steel, Chinese this, that, and the other. These guys are a bunch of traitors.
This government has already admitted that we have a problem with Canadian pension money leaving Canada to create jobs in other countries. They even created a Brookfield-run program to bring it back. But today, the Prime Minister promised the President that Canadian government policies would drive $1 trillion out of our economy into the American economy over the next 5 years. That is twice as bad as has happened in the last half decade. This means lost jobs and lower wages for Canadians who already can't pay their bills. Again, why did the Prime Minister sell out Canadian workers in his visit to Washington?
I think Pierre needs to bring up the fact that Carney's 91% invested in America. I mean, tack that on there. It makes it an even stronger argument. I get he's got to ask a question because that's what the official opposition is doing here. But I mean, there's so many things in play. Precision missile system. We've got this one, the F-35 program. Auditor General confirms the F-35 program has skyrocketed from $19 billion to $33.2 billion before a single jet is delivered. Auditor General found major overruns with D&D's control. You can't make this stuff up. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, we've got Dominic LeBlanc here giving a press conference about Mark Carney's failures because Carney is such a loser. He can't stand up to the microphone himself like a leader and deliver a message to Canadians himself. He sends LeBlanc out to do it for him.
Coming into this, it's been widely reported that the Canadian delegation was hoping for relief on steel tariffs, and it was widely reported and never denied by anybody in the government. So you're not getting that leaving here, and I'm trying to figure out how you can still say that you're happy, and how can you tell Canadians that you've come away from this with a win at all?
I wouldn't purport to correct your question, Mike, but I think I said in the House of Commons yesterday that we don't have an expectation of a detailed deal today. So because some unnamed sources speculated, doesn't change our state of mind when we got here. We hope to make progress. We hope to find the president and his cabinet secretaries fully engaged in finding solutions on priority sectors quickly.
This is too funny. The ambulances and the fire trucks and whatever going on in the background, like it's so fitting here. Michael Couture's question, very directly asked, nobody in the government denied this, so why didn't you get a deal? And he's got nothing.
Steel, aluminum, and energy. We talked about strengthening the energy partnership with.
So he just goes on and on and on. So essentially their working lunch got them nothing. They wasted a whole bunch of money flying all these buffoons down to Washington and got nothing once again. Was it supply management, the dairy cartel? Who knows? These guys are not acting in our best interest, that's for sure. Meanwhile, in CBC, you got nonsense like this.
When Donald Trump was saying some of the more outrageous things related to domestic politics in the United States, Mark Carney would raise an eyebrow and sort of like it was funny to see the, I don't know if it's a lack of poker face, but during some of his answers, Carney was winking toward the reporters, not at any specific reporters, but sort of in the room as Donald Trump was saying some of the things. And I know that got picked up on social media real hard last time.
Are you kidding me? What is she trying to analyze body language and she doesn't know a single thing she's talking about? Oh, he winks sometimes, so yeah, that got picked up on social media. Why do they have these buffoons on camera? First off, everything Carney's doing there, when he was clenching his hands in that weird position, every time that Trump said Gaza, he was squeezing the little winks and the twitches. These are soothing techniques. This is common body language of someone who's under a lot of stress. They're not some secret code that he's sending to reporters. This is embarrassing. And Trump sees the footage and realizes he's being disrespected. How's that going to work out, dimwits? Yeah. So Carney was winking to the media sometimes. You can't know exactly what he's doing there aside from, is it a soothing technique? Is he trying to kind of appease the reporters a bit, or people asking him questions, the ones closest to him? Maybe they said something that he resonated with. He gave them a little wink or something. Was he trying to disrespect Donald Trump? Who knows? Unless you're there or you have microphones that picking up everyone. But in the grand scheme of it, Carney was super stressed out. It's quite obvious. The CBC says outrageous things while winking at Mark Carney. I mean, this is just... You got Pierre blasting Carney on $500 billion up to $1 trillion going out of Canada into America. And what do we got here? Kirk posting this. We got Brookfield Corporation. He's got the dates here from April 7th to October 7th, basically just after Carney was elected. And what do we got? 44% increase in Brookfield Corporation stock. Brookfield Asset Management up 33%. Canadians are getting fleeced. This is a grift. These guys are using easily manipulated Canadians to get rich. It's absolutely outrageous too. I saw a comment the other day of someone who commented on my video saying they love their prime minister, they love David Eby. I don't know how to help these people. They can't be helped. You can only lead a horse to water. You can't force the horse to drink the water.
You know what Canadians feel when they see the prime minister and ministers in the Oval Office defending Canada? Mr. Speaker, they feel pride. They feel pride that this prime minister is standing up for our country.
How was he standing up for the country? He wore a red tie trying to appease Trump. Then he told him he was transformational. He's great at ending this conflict and that conflict. Licked his boots a bit, gave him a little back massage, rubbed his feet a little bit, and then he was done. He didn't stand up. He didn't do anything. He wasn't tough. And obviously he's not good at negotiating, or he's just carrying out his plan as usual here because he's getting nothing for Canada.
Standing up for our workers, standing up for our steel industry, and these crazy hair-eyed schemes that the leader of the opposition comes up with just to get in the news cycle are quite frankly a little embarrassing.
Quite the crazy schemes, aren't they? Is it a scheme or is it? Pierre Poilievre pointing out pension fund money leaving Canada. What do we have here? Catalytic Transition Fund from September 2024. Just a year ago, Mark Carney set up this pension fund with Brookfield. And who was a part of that? The CDPQ, Canada's second largest public pension manager. This one is managed in the Cayman Islands. What do you know? The same place that a lot of this money flows over to for gender-sensitive, ridiculous eco-farming. And if we go over to the other side of the board here, we've got the Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1 and 2. This one, more tax dodging in Bermuda. Two different funds, 15 billion and 10 billion. And what do we see here? The Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. So Pierre's not wrong here. These guys are all working on this stuff together. We got Tim Hodgson's here profile on the Office of Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. And right here it says, other sources of income the last 12 months. He's got rental income from a property with his wife. He's got employment income from Hydro One, income from Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization, employment income from Property and Casualty Insurance Compensation Corporation, employment income from Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, and employment income from Gildan Activewear, which is interesting. And who has moved this money out of Canada? It's Mark Carney. Mark Carney moved this money out of Canada. Tim Hodgson's in on it. This is his fund. Just look at this name, Brookfield Global Transition Fund. If we go back up here to Mark Carney's conflicts of interest, his disclosure here, what do you see? It's right here. Notional long-term incentive plan in the Brookfield Global Transition Fund. If this fund does well, he makes more money. He gets some sort of back-end deal on this, some sort of royalty or bonus off of that doing well. So Mark Carney is incentivized for a fund, two different funds, both of these, utilizing Canadians' money, Ontario Teachers Pension Plan money, to do well. And he's moved this out of Canada to Bermuda. Now we've got more money, more businesses fleeing to America, more capital flight. This is preposterous.
Mr. Speaker, all the hyperventilating in the world will not change the fact that the Prime Minister casually said in the Oval Office today, he bragged that $500 billion Canadian investment dollars have left for the states in the last 5 years, and then promised that $1 trillion more will leave in the next 5 years. Wow. That'll mean mines closing in Quebec and opening in Pennsylvania. It'll mean mills closing in BC and opening in Washington State. Factories closing in Ontario and going to Michigan. Why is it that the Prime Minister sells out Canadian workers, Canadian jobs, and Canadian investments in the White House?
That's pretty scathing that he's bragging that Canadian businesses are moving to America. This should be against the law, what he's doing here. I mean, once again, Mark Carney invested 91% in America. This should be against the law because he's not acting in Canada's best interest. Like, where does this end? Once we're no longer a country? When we just completely go bankrupt? Will Liberal voters wake up in time?
Mr. Speaker, we have said all along that Canada will look after its own people with our own projects, our own labor, our own material. We'll be opening mines, we'll be opening ports, we'll be opening railways.
They said that before. They said this for the past 10 years. They've done nothing for the past 10 years. Now they're going to open up mines and railways and ports. Yeah, right.
We'll be opening our Arctic. We are going to continue to build this country and get a fair, good trade deal for Canada. And it'll be thanks to this Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker.
These guys can't do anything. Just look what China just finished building. Look at this. China built the biggest bridge in the world in 4 years. Look, there's a restaurant up here. And it has a waterfall. It generates a waterfall just for fun. Look at this. This bridge spans this entire gorge. This thing is massive. 4 years. That's not 4 years of planning. That's 4 years total for the entire bridge. Look, there's like a via ferrata on the bottom. People can walk attached there. There's a restaurant, then an elevator on the side. This thing is massive. Look, it generates a waterfall. They did this in 4 years. We can't even do the basic consultation of how to build this bridge, where to build this bridge. We need environmental and indigenous and this, that, and the other approvals before they could even think of doing this. And they talk about building things. We ain't building nothing. Canada's falling behind. Visitors can also bungee jump off of it. Of course they can. This bridge spans 2,050 feet above the river and spans 4,600 feet across the river. Okay, next up, we got to jump ahead here because Jazz Raj just absolutely blast Carney here. Just listen to the first few words of his sentence.
Honourable Member for Calgary East. Yeah, Canadians were promised one thing, but the bait and switch left them with a leader that's elbows and knees down now. And the Liberals can't get their story straight on the economy. First, they blamed Trump's tariffs on having the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. Now they claim they got the best deal on tariffs with the U.S. It doesn't add up. And since the Prime Minister took office, he's doubled the deficit, chased $52 billion of investment into the U.S., and now another $1 trillion, and 86,000 Canadians have lost their jobs. Why? Is it because the Prime Minister has failed trade diplomacy, has failed economic policy, or both?
Carney practically walked into the White House and immediately started praising Donald Trump. The groveling is just icky to watch.
Mr. Speaker, when Canadians compared leaders, they had a choice between a world-class leader, world-class economic and business experience, versus a leader with none. On November 4th, we're going to table a disciplined budget.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians had two choices. Come on, man. Yeah, we had two choices. One is a globalist, elitist, arrogant banker who only cares about himself without a moral backbone, and a man who actually wants to fix Canada, fix the problems of Canada, and help the Canadian people. There, I straightened it out for you.
That is going to create jobs. You want to talk about job creation, Mr. Speaker? The only job the leader opposite has ever created was the one he left open for the member for Carleton in the last election.
Yeah, that's a good zinger, except Mark Carney's had 83,000 jobs lost since becoming Prime Minister. Thanks there, lunch meat. I mean, what's on this guy's tie? These guys are all clowns. I mean, look at this guy. He shows up to work looking like this. What is that? Like eel? Gooey duck? Is that a tongue? I can't even tell what's on there. Bacon? With all of that said, what do we have today? This bombshell coming out here, Canada's deficit to surge to $100 billion, National Bank chief economist says. Carney is bankrupting Canada. He is intentionally destroying our country. That's all this is. This guy knows full well. Out of anyone in Canada, this guy knows how to fix the situation. I really believe that. Mr. Smart Banker knows how to fix this. He doesn't want to. He could. He doesn't want to. He's an arrogant, greedy man who should have never been elected. One of Canada's major lenders says Prime Minister Mark Carney will push the country's deficit to about 3% of its gross domestic product as his government pursues major projects and tries to attract more investment. That's not what he's doing. He's not attracting anything but more money into his own bank account. This is deplorable behavior, what he's doing here. Jumping over to CTV, we've got a former ambassador to the U.S. who absolutely rips the Liberals a new one.
I think Mr. McKenna, Mr. Bernie's comments are based in fact. But I'm not sure that President Trump would arrive at the same conclusion. I say that because there was another example of when he was a reporter asked, hey, what do you make of all these Canadians who are not traveling to the U.S. anymore? A decrease of, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 23%. And his response was, Americans don't want to buy Canadian-made cars. Like on every occasion he could, he drilled down on what he sees as justification for pursuing this tariff regime, which is onshoring manufacturing of all sorts back to the United States. How ingrained do you think his position on that is, and what are the implications for us on that?
His position hasn't changed. That's the whole point. He doesn't want to see Canadian cars in the United States, even though we've had an agreement on this for, I don't know, more than 50 years. So Trump's view on trade hasn't changed. You saw a vintage performance in the press conference that Americans see every day of the week from Donald Trump. That's the real deal. That's the guy who's in control. And his decision alone will decide the outcome. Everybody knows that. The secretaries are very subordinate to him. They're all serving his agenda. That's the problem we have. I think we've got to take our eyes off the United States for a minute and concentrate on other markets. We have to become more self-reliant. We've neglected Asia. Our prime minister has gone to Europe 6 times now, and I don't see any evidence of progress on trade with Europe. He's going to Asia at the end of this month for an ASEAN meeting. I hope he will do some bilateral meetings in Japan, in Korea, in India. I don't care which one, but we've got to start concentrating on expanding our market beyond the United States. We cannot rely exclusively on the United States going forward. And by the way, I think our provinces have to step up. I read a report the other day that it's more easier to buy British Columbia wine in France than it is in Ontario. That's disgraceful. We've talked for years about reducing interprovincial trade barriers. The federal government is in support, but the provinces have to do their job. Instead of jetting off to Beijing to try to carve their own deal with China, why don't they deal with the problem we have at home? We don't have free trade in Canada.
Yeah, that's well said. So Mark Carney, went to Europe 6 times, got nothing. A whole lot of nothing. As you heard, he's going to be heading over to Asia once again. He'll meet with his master Xi Jinping.